Yes.
All right, guys. So we got episode 31. Okay.
Wow.
I'm not interviewing Luca. We're gonna interview my wife, Cara. I think I got interviewed like 2 episodes ago, and we talked about like my parents helping me and all that stuff. We got into coaching, but it wouldn't be possible to do what I do without her letting me do what I do and supporting me. So I think it should be fun to hear her perspective. And I know you guys are going to miss me blabbing the whole entire episode, but this will be the last you see of me. So on to Schreiber and
Wow.
and have fun. Luca says bye too.
Luca!
See you, Coach.
Hi, Cara.
Hi, guys.
Yeah, Cara, thanks for doing this. I'm sure it's a beautiful day. There might be other things to do, but this will be interesting. So Mike, I'll start it off. But the reason this was something I had mentioned to Anthony, and I remember Matthew's freshman year going up to Oswego and realizing at that point that the coaches are away from home a decent amount, and it's not necessarily overnights. That was overnight, but even I think the 3 weeks before Oswego, you guys had tournaments. We had tournaments on Saturday, and sometimes they're so it's no one realizes it. I think when they're just kind of looking at it as a sport, like what the commitment is from the coaches and therefore spouses, and that's true probably of a lot of sports. But I'm curious, since you and Anthony met in college, was that your first exposure to wrestling? Because you come from New Jersey, right? So I imagine you guys had some pretty good wrestling at your high school, but I don't know if you.
Well, so my high school, there was like one good kid on our wrestling team, like he was pretty decent. But it wasn't a big program, but I knew what it was. I didn't really know how it worked, the logistics of it. So when I went to Hofstra, I ended up rooming with a girl in my suite that I didn't really know, who was the manager of the Hofstra wrestling team. So she introduced her friends. She was friends with the whole team. So she introduced us to all of her friends on the team. And that was kind of my exposure and foray into wrestling. Soon after I met Anthony and, started getting into the sport and understanding what a takedown was, and, kind of paid more attention to it because I was interested in a guy on the team, and now here I am.
What was the guy's name?
Very funny.
Touché.
Yeah, touche. But it is a big time commitment, and it's crazy. I was saying to Anthony the other week that I don't think him and I have spent this much straight time together since I met him, since the quarantine. We're both home and not going to work and spending our days together 24/7. But what I do for work requires a lot of travel and being out of the house too. So like, we're lucky that we're supportive of each other in that way. I support him. This is his passion. He's been doing this his whole life, and it makes him happy, and it helps kids get better, because I think the more involved the coaches are in the kids' lives with their career and their training and helping them on and off the mat, I think the more well-rounded it makes its participants.
I think it's great that you guys just had a baby, 6 months old today, little Luca.
Wow.
And I think it's great that you guys had this time to spend together and be able to start raising the baby together. I think it's great.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it's very unique too to have this much time like this. It's
totally. It wasn't expected. I was supposed to go back to work the day that New York City started shutting everything down. Literally the day it happened. It was March 16th, and I went into the office to gather my things, so I had enough to work from home, and that was it. And part of me wanted to be home with the baby for longer, so I guess
of course
I got what I wish for.
It's sad that when, like in teaching, you always see the when the moms come back after having a baby, and they're always sad. They're like, I want to stay home longer. I want to be with the baby. So you're very fortunate in that, and you guys just bought a new house, and so you guys are doing a lot of stuff there.
Oh yeah.
But when can Anthony come play again, though?
She's ready for him to get out of the house, probably.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, like both of us again, but him too. Like, he's always going. He's used to doing so many things that I feel like it's hard for people like him and like me to just not be able to do something 24/7. I mean, luckily the kid keeps us on our toes, but I think it's a testament to his wrestling background too is like, it just made him a hard worker. Like he's always working hard and pushing his limits, right? And going the extra mile. And I think that has to do with this like ingrained, personality trait in him that's been there through years of pushing himself and being on the mat.
Well, you could also get a very good impression of how Cara treats the sport, and also how much she obviously must like it, because I was so impressed. But I guess it must have been January, where you brought Luca to a match at Greeley. And that was great. I was thinking, okay, that's cool. And then all of a sudden, he's sitting on Anthony's lap during a match, which was amazing. But it shows, you're in.
Oh, I'm in. It's already done. But yeah, like it was hard for us to come to a match earlier on because he was so little. I didn't want to really expose him to too much, and it was flu season. It was the middle of the winter, but we had to get him to at least one match before the end of the season. And, Aunt really wanted him to see Izzy wrestle. And
That's so great. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Tortora does more than just an average coach. I mean, he's not just coaching a high school team. He's teaching in the Bronx. He's coming up to our practice at Greeley. And then a lot of times, I know he didn't do it while the baby was just born, but he's going off to Somers and doing, I think, 3 or 4 practices a week.
Yeah.
And then on the weekends, we're away at least 3 weekends that Oswego, Eastern States, and States, we're away for the whole weekend. And then sections.
Right.
So you have to be pretty independent and have your own stuff. And,
Well, like I was saying, like sometimes with my job, I'm gone for 2 or 3 weeks at a time straight, just gone, because of the travel required for what I do. So, I would never say you can't go away for a weekend. Like I'll hold down the fort the way he holds down the fort while I'm gone. We have that, that support of each other. And I think it's important in whatever anybody does. But, I don't know. Ant loves what he does. He loves this so much. He's doing interviews with you every day for 3 weeks straight while he's stuck in his house.
How was that then for you? Because I know my wife, Joanne, Aunt wants Joanne to do one of these, and I'm trying to convince her. But she's like, "You got to do another one? What are you doing? Like it's the middle of the day." Like, and it is. It kind of like jams you up. Like I was out there like cleaning up, and it's 11 o'clock. I got to run in, and so it must be tough for you too, because with the baby.
It's funny. It's just funny because I'm usually interviewing people for my job. So, like, it's funny to see Ant do that. That's the part that I enjoy about it.
How do you think he's doing?
I think he's doing a good job. I mean, like, he's, he doesn't seem to have much of a learning curve. Like, he's just in it, it's natural. And he has such a love for a sport and such a knowledge of the people who are involved in the sport throughout the county and the country on a national level, with kids he's coached going to, different colleges. Like he knows the community so well that I think it just has this natural ability to have all of these questions to ask.
It amazes me when he starts talking about these matches. I mean, I'm like, and they'll say, DeBellis, do you remember that? And I'll say, oh yeah, that was a great one. Sometimes I'm like, I have no idea what he's talking about. I don't know, Mike.
Yeah, but you have more matches, Mike. You've been doing it a little while longer.
Yeah. I don't know. But I mean, it's just that he just remembers the detail. I remember it, and you took down, and it was like, oh my God, what is he talking about?
Does though. He does, and you know what? It's funny. He was talking to me about cutting weight a few weeks ago, and how like he remembers exactly the weight that he was when he cut it, like after every Christmas that he cut it while he was in high school. Like he knows the exact weight he was. How is that possible?
I don't know how any of it's possible.
Yeah.
So really when you would go to matches in college, I assume you went to see him wrestle. Was that easy to watch? Did you the actual matches, did you have to turn away? Like if Luca's going to wrestle, which I can't expect he isn't, but of course you never know.
Yeah.
How does that?
I think it would be harder for me to watch Luca wrestle than it was for me to watch Anthony wrestle.
Yeah.
It was exciting because these are D1 college level matches. There's this energy in the room, and this excitement, and I kind of didn't know what was going on at first. So it was hard for me to know if something was not going right necessarily. But it was still tough. Like, you know, I didn't want to see him lose. That was the thing. Like, and he didn't lose much. Like, he's pretty tough, but you know, it was never, it meant so much to him that it was hard to know that he worked so hard. I mean, like, most of my friends in college were not getting up at 5 a.m. to go for a swim practice. Like, most of my friends were sleeping in and skipping class, not having this level of commitment. So then to see him put all of this into it, you know, I always just wanted to see him, you know, do his best, and he did, and win and come out on top. So it wasn't like I was worried he was going to get hurt. Although there was one time while we were in school that he did hurt his shoulder. You know, I'm sure, I don't know if you guys have seen it was pretty gross.
Quite a shoulder.
Yeah. But, you know, when that happened, I didn't see that match, but, you know, we were, you know, hanging out during that time. And I just remember him, like, being so impressed by him, being so tough that, like, he didn't want to, like, sit anything out. Like, he wanted to continue wrestle. He wanted to finish out his year. And if that meant wrestling with a serious injury that would have anybody else, like, crumpled on the floor, it meant pushing through the pain and getting it done and doing the best he could.
He actually showed the kids, and I saw it as well, a match that he wrestled after that where he was essentially wrestling with one arm. It was had to be excruciating, probably.
Yeah. That I saw. Yeah, but it just showed. But I remember, like, because again, I was new to the sport. I remember being like, Jesus Christ, this guy's tough. Like, what is happening? How could he be wrestling through this? But you know, he didn't want to get it fixed, and he still doesn't. So I guess it's a little too late.
So Luca can wrestle, I guess, right?
I mean,
if
I
he
don't
wants
think
to.
I have a choice. If he wants to, like, and I think Ant's good about that too. Like, he's not going to force him to do anything,
Right.
But I think he's going to see, you know, his dad going to practice. I think he's going to see, you know, his cousins doing youth and stuff, and want to, like, get in it with them. And, you know, I don't know, like, he'll see, like, Nikki and Jake and stuff running around, and, you know, I think he'll want to get in it because it's, you know, it's fun for them when they're little.
It's really great. It's going to be great. You know, just having them in the room. You know, my kids grew up in the Grilly wrestling room, and Dave will tell you. I used to take like Jake would be in his car seat, and I would throw him in the. You know, I'd say, "Here, Ferreira, watch the kids." You know, and Wendy Ferreira like, "Mike, you gonna bring the kids again this weekend?" I'm like, "Yeah. What else am I gonna do? I'm volunteering for a youth tournament. Yeah, the kids are gonna be in the stands. Are you gonna watch them?"
The kids were not in the stands all the time. They
were on the mat.
They were on the mat. We were chasing his kids during the tournaments, making sure they don't get squashed. And
I was watching your
I think
kids.
that's part of the fun.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is what makes it exciting for the kids. I remember in college when my coach's kids were in the room a lot, and you know, and now they're getting married and they're having kids of their own, and they always remember those times running around the room and chasing us, and they looked up to us. Yeah. So it's great that Luca is going to be with Nikki and Jake and Jack and who's the other little guy?
Mason.
Oh, Mason. Yeah. So
I think it's a unique sport in that regard, though, because I mean, look, I'm not around other sports, but I was around soccer a lot, and you don't have the family, you know, because you don't have as many tournaments. It's usually a game and you're done, so you don't have the family involved as much, and I think that also creates more of a relationship with the students and the wrestlers and the coaches because they get to see their family. I mean, Cara, you were at sectionals. I know at least. Matthew's senior year, so 2 years ago, for the whole day. I think you were at that second day, and that's a lot. It's a huge commitment. I mean, and you know, there's not being in one big gym with however many hundreds of people. It's not always probably what you want to be doing at that exact moment, but it was great that you were there. And Matthew actually said something today. He's like, wow, this is really cool. So, you know, those are the kind of things that are different, I think, about this sport than others.
Yeah, I mean, and sectionals is always a really fun tournament, and it's hard because I used to be able to go to more matches and stuff, like when I first graduated college and I didn't have as many like work commitments and things that I had to take care of. Like I would be able to like come up for just like a weeknight match and like get out of work early and, I like being there. And Anthony talks to me about what's going on with the team, how the match went, how this went, what kids doing what, and, how their progress is. So I like seeing it happen. I like watching the sport, but, it's definitely different because, like you said, like on a weekend, you're there all day. Like, it's a full day commitment, but I think it creates an energy and excitement in the room that's different than other sports. Like you get invested in the full journey of a kid, and so it's like an investment on both sides, right? On the part of the kid, but also on the part of the community and the parents and the friends and everybody who comes to watch. It's pretty cool.
So do you think that you you got into wrestling because of Ant, but is it something that like, wow, I want to go watch a match? No, nothing like that, right?
Well, yeah, I guess it depends on what it is. Like if it's something I know about or hear about that I can be invested in, like the backstory, I usually don't go watch matches that are just random out of nowhere, but usually it comes from Anthony and he's like, hey, there's this big college match of this guy and this guy, and, I'll watch it with him. Or I remember when quarantine first started, there was some huge match on ESPN, and I'm like, Aunt, how? He's like, yeah, I want to watch it. I'm like, how are they doing a match right now? Like everything's shut down. He's like, no, it's from 3 years ago. I'm like,
I was watching matches last night. I got
I'm like, you're watching something you already saw from 3 years ago. He's like, yeah, it's on ESPN. I'm like, okay. But yeah, so like I'll watch it here and there. Now that I know what's going on, it's easier for me, but usually I have to be in tune to it happening before I tune in.
Does Anthony bring home the losses?
Sometimes, yeah. Yeah,
some of the bigger ones.
Yeah. Sometimes he, because he's invested. He's bought in. He always talks about other people being bought in, but like he's bought in to the whole thing himself. So
he is the thing. He is
yeah.
The buy-in is, he bought into somebody, but now he's the guy.
Yeah.
He's the guy in Section 1. He might be the guy in the state. I don't know why he's still at Greeley. I honestly don't. Because he makes my life so easy. But
we
are lucky.
We're lucky.
Yes.
But he cares, and it's important to him, and that's what's so great about him is he's such a caring. It goes back to his family, right? Like I know on his interview he was talking about his family and how great it was for them to be there for him in the sport, and I think he thinks of Greeley as his family. Do you know what I mean? Like in a way, it's like that's where he came up. Like he has a great sense of loyalty to Greeley, to John, and to the club. And because he knows that community helped him thrive, I think it's so important for him to give back to that same community. And back to your question, like he does bring home the losses sometimes. Yeah. I can tell if he's just like, the biggest thing to him is that people put forth their best effort, right? Like he doesn't care if a kid loses if they tried their hardest. Like he can cope with that. He gets most frustrated when he sees people have the potential to do something and don't put their strongest foot forward, and for some reason either choke or give up, or don't have the motivation to put everything on the mat. And I think that's what he brings home the most, and that's what upsets and aggravates him more than anything.
Well, I think also it's interesting, what we've been talking about is really the commitment by the coach's wife, in this case, spouses. Everyone's working their hardest. And Mike, you and Anthony, the effort is obvious. And that's why, it's good to have interviews like this, because I think for people who are just starting out in wrestling, or parents who aren't that familiar with the sport, it shows that if the coaches can put this amount of time in, and again, I still think it's very unique to this particular sport, the expectation should be that the kids will do it too. And if they do, they will be successful, whether it's winning matches or not winning matches. It's being able to, as Anthony says, being the best version of yourself, putting forth the best effort, and also using that in other things in life, whether it's work or, what have you.
Yeah.
But it is, it's an interesting
It's funny.
point.
It's funny. It's right after we had the baby, he didn't stop going to practice. I think the week that I had the baby, he like didn't go to some because I was like in the hospital. But he kept going to practice. He had off of work, so it was fine. Like it was just a few hours a day. He, was still able to like get out and continue his efforts with the team. But I remember him saying to the kids once, like, I'm leaving my 3-week-old kid at home to be here. So like, if I'm going to show up, you guys should show up. Like, if I'm putting this forward, you have no excuse.
And we were actually able to keep him aware of what was going on, for instance, at the Greeley Duels while he was with you. Because Luca was born what day? Was it the day before? What day's his birthday? Was it
December 7th?
It might have been that Friday, Thursday or Friday, I think. Was it a
He was
Friday?
born on a Saturday.
So he was born on
so maybe it was that day. It must have been that day. Yeah. So we were getting calls though.
I thought he was coming. I honestly thought he was walking in that door, you know what I mean? So like the whole day I was looking over my shoulder, like, when's this guy coming?
I mean,
he loves the legend piece.
Look, I'm very supportive. I might have killed him if he did that.
That part of his legend.
Yeah,
there had to be timing was perfect though. You did great because he was able to. I think he went to a match that week though after, so that was which I couldn't even make. I felt like I had no excuse.
Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah, he came in like a Tuesday or Wednesday at the end of practice, popped in or something.
Yeah.
It was great. The kids were so excited to see him.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
And is so loyal, and it's not to the school district. It's to the families that he's invested in. Like for instance, he had a job and he student taught with us, had a job interview, and by all rights, I mean, in my opinion, we should have given that kid, it would have changed. We would have been so much further ahead right now for recruiting and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And he never held a grudge.
Yeah.
If it was me, I don't know what I would have done. I mean, I'm kind of similar to Ant in that way, I think. But a lot of people would say, you know what? Why would I coach here if they don't have, the respect enough to give me a job here?
Yeah, but I think it's separate. I think he separates the two, like the school district and teaching at the school is one thing, but it doesn't really impact the team and the families and, the coaching he does, especially because he knows a lot of these kids since they were in youth wrestling at this point too. He sees them come up, and then by the time they're in high school, he's already known them since they were 9-10 years old. And I think it also helps that he loves his job now. Like he loves what he does. He loves teaching in the Bronx. So would he have taught at Greeley? I think sure, but it
would have been different.
He's not trying to leave where he is necessarily. He loves what he does. He loves the impact that he can make. And I think, for him to see such an impact that he makes on the kids when he's teaching every day, is really, it's like a really satisfying thing for him. So I think, would he have taught at Greeley? Sure, but.
Yeah. But he would have made it, I mean, no matter wherever it goes, he's going to make a huge impact. And if it's with the students there at in the Bronx, we go down every year to watch him teach and give out gifts with the kids, and it's amazing. So that's one thing. But if he was at Greeley, he would be teaching other students how to lead the way he leads, and it could compound that effect that he has on that little group. He could be teaching the teachers of them.
But exactly what you're saying. Like, look at that. Like, what person just thinks of something like that? Like, I'm going to bring these kids from Horace Greeley down to the Bronx, bring them gifts every year, show, the kids up there that there are kids with struggles down in the Bronx, and show the kids in the Bronx that they can be treated nicely and get a bunch of gifts during the holidays. Like, that's the kind of person he is. It's the perfect example of like who he is at his core. And, it's just, I think if anybody really, like if people really saw that, like they would want him and they wouldn't want to let him go. Like, I know.
To me, it's beyond belief. I mean, I know like a lot of other school districts are always talking about, oh, come over here, and he won't do it. But
I hope he continues saying that. But it's interesting because two things. One is going down to the Bronx, for instance, at the holidays, is, you know, and I think this was his intention, wasn't just for his students that he
I think
teaches, but it's for the Greeley wrestling team. It's for the parents who go along. It's for everyone. And it's just an amazing experience, and it's expanding. I mean, he brought some kids from Empire the last few years, I think, right? You guys have brought even more kids. So it's, I have still not been able to do it, but I hope to be able to get down there at some point. Which leads me to another question. So he go back of 2 years ago, he's coaching, obviously at Greeley, he's coaching at Empire. He adds a third coaching job essentially to his day, right? Coaching Taft in the Bronx, and now introduced to girls wrestling, women's wrestling. You know, obviously a huge time commitment, but he approached it with such energy, and that is just as much become a third priority, you know, not a third priority, first priority. And it's like he's been coaching there forever, and girls respond to him. And I've been watching more, you know, especially with Izzy wrestling at Greeley. We've gone to some girls tournaments, and it's just amazing, absolutely amazing what he's done there as well.
I mean, and, it's funny. It's funny when he first brought up coaching the Taft team to me. I remember him saying like, oh, you know, instead of going to John's, I'm going to go down to the Bronx to Taft for a couple days a week and coach this girls team. Yeah, we're real, just like, no big deal, no huge difference, just replacing. Instead of going to Somers, I'm going to go to the Bronx, and it's this little thing that's happening. I'm like, please. He doesn't do anything half, right? Like, I knew that it was not just going to be some little thing and he'd go to maybe a tournament or two. I was like, no, this is it. So, and of course, like he went to a few practices, and then all of a sudden it was like, no, I'm doing, you know, I'm going to every practice. I'm going to every tournament. I'm going, like, we're doing extra tournaments. I'm bringing them up to Somers and then driving them back to the Bronx afterwards. And, but he loves it. And the girls are great, you know. I've met them a couple of times. I went to the team dinner last year, and like, you know, I think it's great for them to see how bought it, you know, the buy-in again, like they're into it. It's not easy for a girl to get on the mat and wrestle, right? It's not easy to make that commitment in a staff that for, you know, so many years people, you know, I feel like women don't have the same kind of push to join a sport like that. And Ant likes to say it's the fastest growing women's sport, which is great. But, you know, there have to be women to make that step first to make that happen, right? To facilitate that. So to see them do this, and then they see somebody like him who they're like, this guy's crazy, but like whatever he's doing is working, right? It's just nice to see. I think they respond to it. I know when this quarantine happened, like he was kind of in denial. He's like, they're not going to cancel the season. Like if anything, maybe we'll do it a little bit later. We'll do it a little bit later. And like, you know, once they did, I know he was like really bummed, but he's still been, you know, talking with the girls and with the Greeley kids about like workouts they can do at home. Like, how you can push yourself, how you can go outside to make use of like what you have in your backyard or in your community to get the kind of workout that you know, maybe it's not exactly what you would be getting if you're going to a gym, but like use what you have and what's at your disposal to push yourself and to make sure that you are staying one step ahead, because if you're not still continuing to do that, your competition is. And when you do get back on the mat, they're going to have a leg up. So yeah. I don't know.
I think, sorry, Dad.
I think Cara should come on the coaching staff.
I know, right? I'm telling you, she knows what she's doing here. And I'll tell you something though, Anthony, you know, I know he's having, because even though Matthew graduated, you know, last year, he's participating in some of these Zoom calls that Anthony's been organizing with Mike. The Taft girls are on some of these calls too. And it's not just about the wrestling. I think it's also one of the difficulties we talk about with the quarantine, everybody being kind of a bit isolated. It's even if we can't see people face to face, at least we can do it online. And I think he's doing it to keep them kind of moving along too, just in their day to day, not just for the wrestling.
But that's the thing too about the community, right? Like, it's not just the Taft girls or the Greeley kids on the Zoom calls. It's Matthew and Jacob and, again, the community. Like, it's just, he knows these kids that are still wrestling, and it doesn't matter if you're still in his program or not. If you want to keep, pushing yourself, if you want to talk, like, he's there, and he's like happy to keep people's minds moving, right? And pushing yourself forward, because it's so easy to get like stuck inside and not know what to do and feel isolated. And I think that it's also part of, doing these continued Zoom calls and these workouts and, just making sure that you're checking in with yourself and others socially,
Mhm.
knowing that you're not alone.
Yeah.
You doing the workouts also?
Not quite.
They were running hills yesterday up at Getney Park.
Yeah,
And
I
it
went
was-
down to Kennedy yesterday, and they were all there. It was amazing.
It's not
I was
surprising.
fishing with Jake and Lily, and Nikki jumped in with them.
Oh, is that right? Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was tough. It was tough, he said. Yeah, Matthew said it was
They're
really
great,
hard.
though. I mean, to see Aaron and Matthew up there working with those guys, I mean, that is the connection that Tortora has made. And Tortora brings in all of those kids from Empire. I mean, our room is it's a club room, really, a lot of times, where Quincy Downs is in there, and all these guys. Okay, and all these guys are, our kids get to see them, and if they work hard enough, they're going to figure out a way to win. And Ant is always there to help them.
Yeah, it's true. And you know what he said before, I've heard him say like that you're never going to like regret if you push yourself. Like you're never gonna forget it. You might look back and be disappointed if you give up, but you're never gonna be disappointed in yourself if you push through and if you go that extra mile. And I think, and it helps that he's able to have kids at the club a part of his community, right? Like it's something about his reach, right?
Right.
And to know, like, he might know a kid at the club that's great for Matthew to wrestle with because they would be a good match, right? Like that they have the skill set to go off of each other that maybe Matthew can't find on the Greeley team at that moment. And so that helps push both kids forward. So I think it's great. And it's definitely a commitment. Like you're saying, like John's 3 nights a week, all of the matches and tournaments, really every day during the season. And
I don't know how he does it.
Yeah.
me neither, honestly.
But you have to do it too. I mean, the spouse is still like, and now particularly with Luca around, there's you guys can't kind of both travel and go off. Although I guess grandparents are helpful for that as well. So putting you on the spot, but more Anthony on the spot. It's been 6 months.
Yeah.
Do you see any changes? Because I always say to the coaches, they'll say, you got to calm down if your kid's wrestling. I go, you guys don't have kids wrestling yet. You don't know what this is like. But even having kids at all, maybe his mindset changed at all. Do you see anything different? It's probably too early, but
He's starting to get a dad bod.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
That happens.
God, that'll bother me so much. I'm just kidding. No.
We're gonna have to edit that out, right?
Right. Yeah, he's looking a little soft lately. I'm just kidding. No, but not really yet. Like maybe it'll change, but he's always had this mindset that he doesn't really want to coach his own kid. Like, and he's always said that to me, even before we had Luca. Like, he does want Luca to be involved, and he can't wait to bring him to practices and stuff. I think he would bring him now if he could, and I don't know. It's like, there's lots of,
definitely by the season he could be,
Yeah. Once he can walk on his own, I think I'd be fine with that. But like, I don't know. He can't even stand up yet. So
that's a good rule of thumb. Yeah, you have to be able to walk to go to wrestling practice.
I mean, I'm not trying to be unreasonable here, but
you should reconsider.
Yeah, oh God. Okay. But there's no practice for him to go to yet. But yeah, no, I think he's always had the mindset of like, I'm not going to coach my own kid. Like, I'll be there for him. I'll support him. I'll do what I can to help him in the way that he wants. But he kind of wants to create that separation so he can still be dad. And I think that's admirable. I think if Luca gets into it, he's still going to, want Anthony's advice and want to know what he would do and what he thinks. So, not that there's not going to be any crossover, but he doesn't want to be the one pushing Luca the way he would push a kid as a coach.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
And again, I always say to both to Mike and Anthony, I can't wait to their kids are wrestling. And I say that in the best way, in the sense that, you know, it's just going to be exciting, but it's also, you know, I'll get my opportunity to say, see, I told you it's hard to watch, or it's hard, you know.
It is so hard.
Yeah.
And you're experiencing that now.
First time, and he got tore up at the John J. Cross River takedown tournament. And he just got beat. Like, I mean, and I was like, oh my God, you know, because I thought, hey, this kid's going to go out. He's going to do fine, you know. And he just got beat up. And I was like, oh my God, this is tough. Now it's easier because I just don't care. If he wins, he wins. If he loses, he loses. I don't care.
Yeah.
And, you know, we got Anthony there and Khalid and Alex Dela Cruz and those guys. All of us were in the corner for him on one match, and it was awesome. I was like, I can't.
Yeah, you had quite a coaching staff in a lot of these matches. I remember that. Yeah, he had the top coaches in the area, all four of you on one mat. But
very
well,
good.
I can offer one suggestion. There was if you can't watch, or if a grandparent can't watch, there was one parent a bunch of years ago on the Greeley team who had trouble watching. And again, sometimes you don't want to see them lose. Sometimes you don't want to see them get hurt, particularly when they're a youth wrestler and the arms being bent back. But she would go to the matches, and this applies to men, women, everyone. If you don't want to watch, she would look away, and someone else would tell her what was going on in the mat, and if it was safe to look at any particular time, or if she shouldn't look. And it worked. She would go to all the matches, so she was there. So that's always an option.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll be okay. I think I'll be okay, but I know
I think so.
His grandmas might need that kind of support, because even Anthony's mom didn't like watching him. Like,
oh, is that right? Okay.
Yeah, okay. She didn't like it because, well, not that she didn't like it. She likes to watch him, but I think sometimes it was hard seeing her when he was younger getting hurt, like that aspect. Right. And who knows? I mean, I might be the same. I don't know yet. I hope I can watch him and be there for him, but I might cringe a little bit too. I don't know. I'm sure
it's all normal.
But it's also hard. Like, I think what I'll have a harder time with is not like seeing his arm bend and twist in a weird way, or like, you know, break his nose or whatever. I don't know. Like Anthony used to come back from college matches all the time with a black eye. It was like his accessory. But I think I'll have more trouble with knowing from home how much work he puts into it, and then see him lose, you know. But I don't know.
It'd be great.
Yeah.
We're talking about a 6-month-old kid's wrestling career.
He's gonna be the
I think we're getting a little overboard right now.
Yeah, but you know what? At the end of the day, it's not, and I say this all the time, and I don't want to commandeer the call, but it's not about the wins and the losses, right? I'm telling you right now, because of Anthony, because of Mike, my son is a completely different person than he would have been had he not wrestled. And those are all positive things. I mean, it's just the confidence and the ability to be more responsible for yourself and for things happening around you.
Yeah.
So that's what it's about, whether you lose every match, which, you know, that it's not what it's about. You know, at the end of the day, obviously you want them to win, but it's more about just, you know, maturing, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
Just to see the transformation. So
it's going to be a nice ride.
Yeah, you're going to enjoy it. You know, it's, and you got a long way to go.
He's going to have a lot of coaches in his corner too, though. He's going to have, you know, like that Anthony doesn't want to coach his son, but he also has like the alumni network. Like he has the Matts and the Jacobs and kids that, you know, he taught growing up that go on to have these, you know, college careers that can come back and, you know, maybe babysit and do a private lesson at the same time. I don't know.
Good idea. It's a good idea.
I hope he plays basketball.
Yeah.
Well, it'll be interesting to see as he gets older, and, you know, just watching Anthony. Also, it'll be interesting to see, and Mike can probably talk about this when's your interview next week?
Whose?
Yours.
I did it last night.
Oh, you did it already? Oh, I can't wait to watch it. Because, you know, I would think as you go through life, whether it's as a parent or a teacher, you're improving your way of coaching and your way of teaching, and, you know, we all do that. And it's interesting, I think, as you have kids and as they grow up, your mindset changes, and probably your approach to things change, and likewise you as well, as you do your work or whatever you're, you know, doing at that moment. But it'll certainly be fun to watch.
Well, he's definitely going to change. Anthony's going to change because of Luca. There's no doubt
Yeah,
about that.
that's what I mean. Yeah.
I mean, there's no doubt. And me personally, I mean, if it wasn't for Anthony, we wouldn't be anywhere near where we are now, and I would certainly wouldn't be a coach I am today without him for sure. I mean, he's a special guy for sure. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
Yeah, it's true. It's just it's him. There's something about him. Like, I don't know. I could tell when I met him 10 years ago, like I just knew within a week of knowing this guy, like that there's something different about him. I don't know.
Now,
Like,
did you know the wrestling
around him and make it work? Like he's kind of like a magician. Like he doesn't get mad. Like there's some people that get mad and will turn people off. He doesn't do that. You know, He doesn't just be like, you know, he figures out a way to he figures out a way to put people together too.
Yeah.
You know, like me and John, we didn't get along in high school. We hated each other. I mean, really. I mean, it was a bad thing. And somehow, some way, he made that connection, and now me and John are really good friends.
That's great. That's great.
But that's Anthony, and Anthony does that with a lot of the. I mean, Anthony's the glue in Section 1. I mean, he brings together A-Rod and this one and that one and all the kids. And I mean, the reason why Section 1, or a reason why Section 1 is doing very well, a big part of that is Anthony J. Tortora. Is his middle name really Jay?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah. Why have you just been making that up this whole time?
Well, I always say Jay.
I think when you interviewed him, you called him the third, though. I don't think he's a third.
No, he might not be.
No,
sounds good. It sounds good, though. You know.
Sounds
so
very,
when you met, did you realize, or could you see that wrestling was going to have as much impact or time commitment? It probably was too early at that stage, but I'm curious what, you know.
Yeah, I don't think I realized, like, okay, when I met him, I wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna marry this guy. Like, I didn't know. We were both still young. Like, I knew there was something special about him, but I had no idea. But I guess I didn't really have the foresight to think that, like, you know, he's going to have the coaching commitments that he has now. You know, we were just like young and still having fun in the sense that, like, he was still a wrestler. Like, he was still a participant and not on the other side of things. So yeah, I guess I didn't know, but I knew that no matter what, wrestling was going to be a part of his life after his career as a wrestler was over. I just didn't quite understand how. And part of that was my own ignorance. Like, I didn't know the way a club could contribute to a wrestler's career in high school. You know, I knew what clubs were. I knew that it was like, I kind of equated it to a like traveling team for wrestling, you know, but I didn't quite know that, like, the power behind it, right? Like, that if a kid commits and is wrestling all summer long, that they're going to be that much more ahead of the game when, you know, the fall comes. And so I think now, knowing what I knew, like, if I knew that then, maybe I would have had a better idea.
You might have run.
maybe I don't know. No, he had me hooked. No, something about the guy.
Was it, Mike, when you interviewed Anthony, did he seem to know in college? I don't know if this came up, whether he was going to want to coach, you know, afterwards, or was it going to kind of be part of his life going forward? Or I don't know if you guys talked about that.
I think he's frozen.
I think he is frozen. Because, you know, it's interesting. You know, you talk about Matthew, you talk about Jacob. I would be very surprised if they didn't want to coach in their future. Matthew said it 100 times, you know, that he wants to do that.
It's interesting because it wasn't just like, it wasn't an automatic like foray into doing that. He was going back little by little to wrestle during like Christmas break. And when he would come home, like, he was already kind of baby steps doing it, you know, going back to the club over break, wrestling with the kids who were there. Then when he graduated, like, helping coach a little just because he was an alumni, you know, helping with the other kids because he was still close in age that he was wrestling with them. And I think it was a natural progression. So
Mike, did you have to convince Anthony to coach, or?
Did my computer shut off at all?
Yeah, you were out for a second.
Okay. Because my battery died. Okay.
Did you have to convince him to coach? I'm curious how, whether that was just something he was going to always do, like I know Matthew and Jacob have expressed interest in coaching when they're, old
That's
enough.
great. I mean,
When
those
you
two
brought,
guys would be awesome.
it would be awesome for
No,
them to do it. But
I reached out to him. I was doing the alumni thing, trying to figure out who the alumni was. I knew Anthony and I knew Greg were wrestling in college at the time, one at Brown and one at Hofstra. They came back and they came to a youth practice. So they how I am. So I said, all right, so we have these two guest clinicians and they're going to run practice. And I just walk away, And then I remember them, they did a single leg, shelf it. And it was awesome. I mean, the kids in that room were Nadler, Ferreira, maybe Schreiber. I don't even know.
Yeah, I don't know.
But there was like 30 kids there. And to have those two young guys come in and have the interest enough to teach them. And they were great teachers right off the bat, both Anthony and Greg. And I don't know. And then I said, I think he was working at the county center.
Yeah.
And I said, come on on. We already had a full staff. And I somehow got him money from the booster. So he did that for a year. And then he was a volunteer assistant. And then he came on. And then the rest is history so far. I mean, it was incredible. I mean, who's teaching at their high school or coaching at their high school right now? Not a lot of people.
Yeah.
I don't think. I mean, Carmel guy, he's from Carmel, but I mean, it was just a great connection and very fortunate. So.
Well, you guys form great. It's a great team. And I'll tell you, from my perspective, not having anyone on the team, to be able to work with you guys and watch this continue is great. And Cara, the fact that, and I'm sure it's, true as Joanne as well, and hopefully we'll get a chance to talk to her, but the fact that you guys, what's that?
I got to try to get her. She's shy.
She
doesn't like wrestling, though. She doesn't go to the matches, And she's like, just tell me what I have to go to.
Yeah, but she still has to be involved. I mean, it's whether a wrestler's parents have to be involved, whether a coach's spouse has to be involved in any sport, whoever that is. We thank you for, all you do behind the scenes. Yeah. In addition to you having your own life and career as well, but it takes a village, right? I mean, the fact that he's, like you said, driving down to the Bronx sometimes to get them to practice up here and then going back. And I believe he had done something with them. They were running somewhere yesterday or the day before.
Socially distanced run workouts.
Yeah, which is, it's crazy times, but he's still able to motivate. And Matthew said to me, I think it was on Thursday, a few of them, very few, wasn't the same numbers as yesterday. They went to the chapel called the post office, and there's a road right next to the post office that is just an incredible hill. And I said, does Anthony know you guys are doing this? You got to tell him, this is, because they used to do it with him when they were in school. And I think he had something to do with the fact that they actually did it 2 days ago too. So he's constantly staying in touch with them, and over, like I said, over this time with the quarantine.
Yeah,
it's not just about the wrestling, it's also the social aspects.
But I think it's also I think the reason he has a lot of this momentum too is not just the kids, but it's a testament to the coaching staff that he coaches with and the parents, and like having you guys to talk to and to bounce things off of, right? Like, I mean, like he's on the phone with both of you all the time. I don't know. I don't talk to anybody on the phone that much.
No, he can talk on the phone.
Yeah, but like he'll call you and he'll like rehash a match and like talk about ways in which you can do things better. Like he has support, like from a coaching standpoint too, in you guys to like talk about how to continue to make things better, or who's coming up that's wrestling one of the kids on the team and what have they done before and how can we beat them, and technique, or who's committed and maybe who's not showing up and how to motivate them to show up. And I really wish I had the stamina to talk on the phone with my girlfriends as much as he talks on the phone with you guys.
I don't have the stamina either.
You just like
I'll be like, oh, I gotta go.
No, you know what it is? It's always trying to improve, which is also what's instilled in the kids, and he's a perfect role model for it, because they can't, how do they say I'm not going to do that if he's doing it? I mean, it's.
I mean,
got energy.
Yeah, look, he was in the backyard chopping down trees because he had to, like, I don't know, fix our backyard. I don't know much about outdoor maintenance, but he does. And so he literally was chopping a tree down, and then after he chopped it down, he's like, you know what, I'm gonna work out with the trunk. And like the branches off the tree, and he's like tossing this log back and forth to himself in the backyard. And he's like, you know what, and this is the genius of him, right? He's like, I'm gonna take a video and send it to the kids. So like, again, like showing them a way to use what they have in order to do something different to push themselves and push their body. And then, you know, Charlie, our dog, is barking like a wild man because he sees Anthony pushing around cinder blocks in a wheelbarrow back and forth to get a workout in. And
come over. I got plenty of work. You don't have to make it up.
We have plenty of work here. And that's the thing too. Like, we just moved in. Okay, we moved in right before the baby was born in end of November, and you know, alumni and kids that Anthony coaches volunteered to help us move. Like, they came and helped us move in, and you know, it was just, we were in such a time crunch and things were so crazy, and it's just a testament to, like, you know, these kids, you know, I guess appreciating and respecting Anthony and wanting to help him because he's helped them so much, you know, like having an alumni say like, sure, I can help you move some boxes. Like, who does that? But, you know, they're so close that it was just so nice to see some of the kids come and help. And, you know, I couldn't move much. I'm very much a independent person who likes to get things done and do things myself, but being 9 months pregnant, it was difficult for me to not do that. But
yeah, I couldn't help either. Anthony asked me, but it was my cat's birthday, and I just couldn't make it.
He had a good turnout though.
Call me, he's like,
I heard.
hey, you want to help me move? I'm like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, but no, you know, like I was in here and there's like half painted walls and stuff, and I see Khalid walking around. It's just like, you know, it's
that's another thing that Anthony does. I mean, Khalid, you know, was kind of floundering around. He didn't know what he was doing. Anthony pulled him in.
Yeah.
You know, and said, hey, you're going to be with us for now, you know, and that's another thing. He doesn't leave anybody behind.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. He sees when people, you know, if they have, if there's something in them, you know, like if they have it, and if they, you know, and even if they're not like at the peak of their ability or not at the best that they can do, he knows how to push them to that place. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. He sees
Anthony Sasso, one of our alumni. He's like, Mike, I think we should hire this guy. And I don't even think Anthony was looking for a job. He says, I think he'd be a terrific modified coach. He's in town. He's a, you know, and Ant was a 500 wrestler pretty much. I mean, he wasn't, you know, a barn burner. And he was 100% right. Anthony Sasso has turned into a great asset for us. And, you know.
That's great.
And it's a lot of times
put together a team.
It's just fine giving someone a chance, and he knows, you know, who to, you know, if they'll apply they'll succeed.
Yeah. Sometimes I bring in some randoms that don't work out.
You know, you never know. Gotta give people a chance. So how is the house? It's coming along?
Yeah, it's coming along.
Great.
It looks great. It's nice. Look, I'm glad we got in here before the baby was born, because being quarantined for 6 months in a 1-bedroom apartment with an infant and a 65-pound dog and a husband who needs to be doing stuff at all times would have been real claustrophobic.
Yeah, that would have been tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're painting not such a good picture there. Yeah, that would have been tough.
Yeah.
Yep.
No,
it was touch and go there. I heard you guys were really kind of just getting in before the baby was born. So
down to the wire. But you know, it all happened, and we're super fortunate, and you know, it's good because there's like plenty for Anthony to do. You know, like lots of yard work, lots of stuff for us to you know, keep occupied, or just like have space to bring the baby out in the backyard and, you know, get some fresh air, and it's good. It's all great, you know. I don't know. I'm lucky.
You got to be careful now that you did this interview and you spoke so highly of Anthony. He's going to use this. Yeah. If you guys get into an argument, he's going to say, well, Cara, you know, you online said this, and he might pull up the video. He's going to have little clips.
She may lose the video. Maybe the video will just disappear, you know.
Yeah. He's gonna have clips.
No,
I am pretty
we
tech
appreciate you
savvy.
doing this because I know it's obviously not, you know, not the easiest thing, and I'm sure you have a lot of other things to be doing, but it's greatly appreciated because it's fascinating to get a different perspective. It really is.
Yeah. Well, look, I'm happy to do it. I'm not used to being in front of the camera. The work I do is behind it because I feel like a little jammed up when I'm in front of it, but it's easy to talk about Anthony because, you know, I love him and I support him and I think he is great for so many reasons. So it's an easy thing to do, right? Like I'm not making this up. I'm just
Sure.
talking about what I know. So it makes it a little bit easier. And it helps that you guys are so, you know, kind to me and not asking me tough questions.
I was even trying. I couldn't even come up with any. I was like, some of these are tough, you know. But thank you, seriously, on behalf of my family here and Matthew and everything. Because again, and I would say the same thing to Mike and Joanne. I said over and over again, I trust Matthew's life to both Mike and Anthony, and you know, it takes more than just them to get this done. So thank you, and thanks for your time today,
Yeah.
Mike. I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to.
Just no, thank you. It's great. Anthony's the best. So, you know, he's just great for the kids, great for us, great for the community, great for everybody. So
Yeah.
we really appreciate you letting us play with him. And
it's all yours. Please, look, we've been in the house for too long. Just take him.
I can't wait to get through this. I mean, this whole thing has gotten me, you know, super excited about wrestling again.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, about just anything real again. You know, just going back to real life, we're going to appreciate things probably more than we ever have. You know, simple things.
Yeah, but I think that's what it'll do it too, is like, I think if anything, it's going to light a fire under people that when you do finally come back and you're able to get in the room, like people are going to appreciate it more than ever. Kids are going to appreciate being able to be there because they know what it was like when they couldn't. So that includes the coaches and the kids. And I you know, I think it's a great thing. I'm, you know, glad that you guys had me on and wanted my perspective. And, you know, I'm grateful to have a husband who, you know, does such a good thing for the community and loves what he does. And, you know, I'm grateful that he has a support system like you guys and the kids and everything.
Thank you. Well, thanks for doing this. And you can stop the video on your end. I wanted to ask you a quick question.
Yeah, let me stop this and then I'll stay on with you guys.